Hello everybody, Roux here. Welcome back to the Hacienda. Good to see you again. Today we're doing something basic. We're going to make a roux. We are going to make a roux that is a good starter for any Cajun food and is a good all-around thickener for soups and stews. And it adds a lot of flavor, and it's very easy to make if you follow a couple rules. If you don't follow the rules, well then it's going to turn out to be a total disaster. You're going to have to throw it away. What I got here is a cast iron skillet. You have to use one. You have to use something heavy. The non-stick or flimsy aluminum will not work. I'm adding about 2 tablespoons of bacon grease for flavor. That's optional. You don't have to do it. What you do need is a cup of oil. You want a high heat temp oil. So I'm using a combination of peanut and canola. Do not use olive oil on this. It's not going to come out. I'm adding the bacon because I made enough times and I like the flavor. And I've got 2 cups of flour. The ratio is 2 to 1. This stuff freezes very well and it gets into a nice thick paste, and you only need a few tablespoons, maybe a quarter cup for a whole gallon of gumbo or jambalaya. And you can keep it in your fridge forever. Because really it's only cooked flour and oil, and so it really doesn't spoil. So it's a good thing to have in the kitchen. And once the oil gets hot, almost smoking, we're going to add the flour. What you can do is take a pinch of flour, and when you see it foam up like that, you know the oil's hot enough. Now you want to be careful not to burn this, so we're going to add the flour little by little and mix it up. Once you start, you're in it for the duration. You can't go to the bathroom, you can't go answer the phone and talk, because it's going to burn, and it'll burn in a matter of a moment. So we are now stuck together, you and I here, making the roux, and that's fine. And I've now turned it down to number 3, and now all we're going to be doing is just continuously stirring it so it doesn't scorch and burn. And as the flour cooks in with the oil, it's going to start turning colors. The first color, when it's ready, is going to be light blonde, and it's going to be the color of peanut butter. And that's known as a light roux or a blonde roux, and it's got the lightest flavor of all. The next color is a little darker, the color of milk chocolate, and that's a medium roux. That's got a little bit richer flavor. I like the darker roux. That's the color of dark chocolate, and it has the most intense flavor, a deep richness that really adds a lot to stews, especially beef stews, and jambalaya and gumbos, and you know, Acadian cooking. Okay, I figure it's going to take about an hour. I've got 20 minutes after 12. I will keep you posted on the time as I show you shots of the color change, and we'll take it from there. Join me back in a little bit. Now, I had mentioned the little black spots of scorching. That's why you don't add any pepper or anything in here, because if you scorch it and you see a bunch of black spots, you're going to have to throw it away. Now, there's not going to be any doubt. It's going to look like there's a bunch of pepper in there, and it's going to smell scorched. And that's why you're going to have to throw it away, because there's no way to get rid of that stench and flavor. Alright, it's 12:45, so we've been at it for 25 minutes now, and it's starting to turn much quicker. To keep you occupied while we carry on this task, I'm going to tell you a story. It's the Mayan folktale on how we got the different types of corn that exist today. And this was translated from the Nahuatl, the Mayan language, by the friars that came with Cortez. And although the Mayan Empire was no longer, there was all kinds of Mayans still there, and they lived in smaller villages. They just were no longer an empire, and they spoke the language, and they told them. And these friars and priests wrote everything down, and thanks to them we have these creationist folk tales to share with us. And it goes like this. Way back, many, many cycles of life ago, when man still lived in peace and harmony with all the animals of the jungle, and they communicated freely between them. The wolf and the fox could talk to the iguana and the fish, and they all could talk to man, who was in the last cycle of embodiment, and he had been made from corn. Initially, the gods, when they decided they want to make man, they first made man out of sticks, and they were just dull and couldn't speak, so they destroyed the sticks. Then they made man out of mud, and although the man could walk around, he was mute and almost deaf, and that didn't work out. So they wanted to create man, a creature with the fire of the sun and the spirit of the winds and the fruit of the earth. So they made him out of corn, and sure enough, that was a wise man and a good creation of theirs, and that's how man came about. Well, man knew how to cultivate and grew corn back then, and would store it in huge areas so they could eat, and they shared it freely with the animals in the jungle. Well, the ants were not independent, and they were not as strong nor as large nor as well thought of as man was, and they decided they didn't like all this independence. They thought that collectively they could do better, and they were going to steal man's corn and starve man, and they were going to keep it all to themselves. So they hatched a plan, and little by little they sent the ants one by one to, I'm turning down the heat because you can smell it changing, getting warm here. You can see it turning. It's starting to look like peanut butter. They started stealing the kernels of corn one by one by one by one, and the fox, who was one of the best friends of man, noticed this line of corn kernels just moving through the jungle away, and so he wisely followed it. And he walked for a day and a half and a full night, and he came to a large mountain, and through a crack in the stone into the mountain, the ants were carrying away man's corn into their lair, and they were going to steal it. So Fox, being smart and cunning as he is, ran back and told man what was going on and how the ants were staging a plot to take over. Well, man then decided, thanked Fox very much for giving them this information, and they prayed to their gods for help in defeating the ants. Now, the gods that created man at this time were figuratively shown as iguanas, and there was a male one and a female one, and the female one also represented the moon, and the male god represented the sun, and together they ruled over everything, and they took care of man. So they heard man's prayer and told man not to worry, they would take care of this. And so they sent this huge rainstorm that rent the skies and poured tons of water upon the earth, and a huge lightning bolt was sent down by them from the sun and hit that mountain and burst it wide open in this explosion of super magnitude, and blew all that corn that the ants had been storing in there up into the sky in this massive explosion. And for 2 days it rained like rain. The corn kernels came out. Well, the corn kernels that came out of the mountain that were closest to the epicenter of the explosion were toasted almost black, and that's how we get blue corn. The ones that landed a little farther away from the fire were toasted deep ochre, and that's where we get red corn from. The ones a little farther away from that were just toasted to a nice golden color, and that was the source of yellow corn. And those farthest away were not discolored at all, and they became white corn. And man, who was so grateful to the gods for sparing them and saving their food, planted all these different varieties, and henceforth from there we have those different colors of corn. 1 hour in, and you can see it's the color of milk chocolate right now. Here we are at 1 hour and a half. It's turned into a rich, dark chocolate color. So now we're going to take it off the heat. I'm going to pour it into a stainless steel bowl to cool. You do not want to let it cool in this because it'll char and burn on you. Here we are with the cooled roux. It's been cooled for about an hour. You see how dark it is? It darkens a lot when it cools off. So now I'm just stirring in a little bit of the oil that floated to the top. Put it in a plastic Ziploc little tub, and you're good to go. And you just scoop it out by the tablespoonful and put it in your food. Good stuff. Hope you enjoyed it.